I recently saw a clip from one of the relationship podcasts, where they have those rooms and they have the whole groups of people. They have single women, single men, mostly young people, and they come together and they talk about whatever they talk about, different aspects of usually modern relationship and modern dating and how to get in relationships and all of that good stuff. But I wasn't looking at it particularly for the relationship information. There was just an interesting way a young lady was trying to express herself there. And you could see that she was trying to express a view that she has in her mind. There's something that she has in her mind, and she's struggling to form the words to express that out into reality so that people would be able to understand the idea that she has in her mind. And in looking at this frustrating exercise, it really had me thinking about education in general. And I think it is a good starting point for me to start what I now plan to do on most Mondays, do an educational video, at least a video on topics on teaching and education and learning that I would have recognized in the past week, especially with the weekend passing here, because most weekends are the times, in case you don't know, when I do most of my teaching with Mindful Education. If you're interested in that, you could head over to Instagram and take a check on that. We provide learning pods, private tutoring, and there are always interesting stories and lessons to learn from that every week. So I think Monday would be my educational video on my YouTube channel, and we'd start to go forward with that from there. So make sure to hit that like button if you like this kind of content. If you'd like to see more of it coming out, hit that like button, drop a comment, tell me what you think. If you are not yet subscribed, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. And we're going to dive into this, and from this we're going to go into Socratic teaching and different teaching methods, and eventually talk also about the visiting of the schools by one of our known influencers here in Trinidad and Tobago, and that created quite a bit of a stir over the last week. So let's dive into all of this. This first one coming from a video from the Whatever podcast, and let's listen to what the lady is trying to say.
So, are you desirous of traditional dating?
Yeah, like,
Okay.
just like, I like cannot tell you like the last time I was asked out on like an actual like normal date. Like, it's not like that.
Guys that are just saying, hey, do you want to hang out?
Yeah, it's just like that. Like, it's never like shit's never planned out anymore. Like, it's always just like little like spontaneous like come over. It's never like, okay, let's go do this and this. Like, guys don't do that anymore.
How many times did she say like that? That's it, right? Like you could like pause the video and like play that back and like count how many times she said like. And she's trying to express something. This is only the first part of it. I stumble upon the second part over on Twitter, and Twitter being Twitter.
I think like the biggest thing that like annoys me in like the whole dating world is like fucking talking stages. Like, that shit's so annoying. Like, the whole like, and just like the inconsistency in them. Like, I literally like hate that like so much. But I think that's like my biggest thing. It's just like
What specifically?
just like the fact of just like you like, I don't know how to word this.
Yes, we
Like,
can
in,
tell.
like, talking stages, and it's just like you're like labeled that, and it's like people like are considered like you can't like, you're just like confused, and like most of the time like the girl gets like attached or something, and they like see it like it's gonna lead to a relationship, and it's always not. And it's just like, that's like my biggest thing is like I just hate the whole like how like talking stages are so like normalized. Like, traditional dating does not exist in this generation.
And the thing is, what she's talking about, I think, at least I think, I understand the point she's trying to make. And she's trying to make a worthwhile point. The point, I consider the point that she's trying to make to be a worthwhile one. She's trying to speak about the difficulties in modern dating, where modern dating seems to have this talking stage in there, and the talking stage traps people in a semi-relationship status without actually being in a relationship. Especially on the male side, it's like you're in the talking stage, so you get some of the benefits of the relationship kind of level without having to put out as much in the as you would have in a relationship, and that's what she's talking about. We don't have to plan any dates. I don't have to come up with a concrete idea of what I want to do, of what we want to do. No, I don't need to do that. We're in the talking stages. It's all, casual, and we don't have to be too official about any of this. And here's the thing. I think some of the language that she's speaking here, like with all the likes and likes and likes, that's also symptomatic of the same thing that caused some of that changes in dating, the lack of officialdom. There's nothing really official anymore. Everything is also casual, You don't have to take it too busy. This isn't a date. We're in the talking stage. And similarly with language, you don't have to use all of that formal language. Language has become so casual. Languages, we're just talking to each other, trying to, build a rapport. It's not all of that old kings and queens English nonsense. And I think that's a problem personally. I think if you look back in time, I was looking at some of the letters written by some people, some of the soldiers in some of those wars of old. World War One, the Civil War in the United States, the Revolutionary War, the wars of those era. There were letters written by people during those wars. And these men oftentimes were teenagers, late teens, early 20s. And when you read the words of these letters, it's nearly like poetry you're reading. It's to the level of poetry. It's to the level of nearly like a professional writer in the modern time. And many people of modern age seem to be incapable of this. Let's read some of these. I witnessed the battle. These are different snippets of letters written from during the Civil War in the United States. That's like 150 years ago. Listen to how they write. The force of a mini ball or piece of shell striking any solid portion of a person is astonishing. It comes like a blow from a sledgehammer, and the recipient finds himself sprawling on the ground before he is conscious of being hit. Then he feels about for the wound, the benumbing blow, deadening sensation for a few moments. Unless struck in the head or about the heart, men mortally wounded live for some time, often in great pain, and toss about upon the ground. One from a private. A frenzy seized each man, and impatient with their small muzzle-loaded guns, they tore the loaded ones from the hands of the dead and fired them with fearful rapidity, sending ramrods along with the bullets for double execution. That's a private. So nearly anyone at the private level very likely is a late teen. For the oldest is a late teen, early 20s. This is a young person. This is a person at the peer level of the young lady who said all of those likes there. And listen to how they express themselves. The vocabulary, the grammar, the expression. And here's the thing. It's not just a matter of changing of times and different times. And the reality is, as time changes, we do change language. How we speak isn't the same way we'd always speak through time. Time has changes with language. The problem here is that young lady was struggling to communicate. She was struggling to express herself. The problem was she could not get the idea she had in her mind. She could not get that idea out into reality. She couldn't express that idea. That's a problem. That's an issue. You have a problem with how you are being courted. You don't like how you are being courted in this modern time. But you can't even put it into exact words. If you want to express to someone who might be interested in you how you would like to be courted, how you would like your relationships to move on into the future, you can't even express it because you don't have the formulation and technique of words in order to do that. And I think a lot of that has to do with the education system. The strange thing is, many of these men back 150 years ago in the American Civil War, many of them were homeschooled. They had no formal education. They certainly didn't have public education because by and large, the popularization and proliferation of public education didn't take place until the turn of that century. At least in the United States, it came over from Europe first with the communists and then came over into the United States where the industrialists set up the public school, and they set up those schools with the idea of making good workers. Now, I regularly say this, setting up a school to make good workers for your country isn't naturally a bad thing. Many people speak about the history of public school and they talk about they're trying to make workers and good slaves and good worker bees, and I understand why you would say that, but from a countrywide perspective, if you were a country struggling in subsistence farming in the 1800s, 1700s, and you're trying to push your country into the modern time, you understand that industrialization is how you do that. But you cannot take a farming country and just plop them into an industrial country. It doesn't work. There needs to be some training. And that's what the public education was aimed at doing. Training your population, training your civilians into how to function into the industrial age. Now, The problem with that is the industrialists are the owners of that industrial revolution. And you, the person who is being educated, you're being educated into being a worker for them. That's kind of a class, they're permanently putting you into a class. Very likely the industrialists wouldn't educate their children in the same schools they're educating their workers in. They want to educate their children to be a different kind of thing. And here's the thing, the industrial revolution, that industrial age is kind of gone now. The copy and paste worker isn't as useful as it once was. But yet still, we're still using the same copy and paste creation mechanism in the public education system. And I think that's what we're seeing some of now, where a lot of this education system, the public education system, is streamlining people into do certain things. And unfortunately, one of those things isn't expressing yourself. So many of the children, many of the students going through the education system are not properly educated. And one of the things I think might be the issue for that, and this is something I use in our techniques in how we teach in our learning parts and even in the private tutoring, the Socratic method. Socrates, old philosopher guy from ancient classical Greece. I think he was killed, just by the way. But one of the things that made him so popular was not just that he was very intelligent, but he considered himself to not be that intelligent. While being intelligent, he had the humility, and that humility provided the opportunity to learn more. One of his techniques, one of the main techniques that Socrates used was asking questions, asking legitimate questions. And he, as the teacher would ask questions, and as he asked questions, it would reveal to the students what they didn't know, how much they didn't know, and also what they would have to learn. And I think even in teaching in general, that's something that we attempt to use in mindful education. We ask questions, the Socratic method. Something over the weekend here, we were asking questions going down a train, and what you'd notice, oftentimes you ask questions and it leads you into the areas where the children are missing some knowledge, where you can actually help them. And it allows them to lead that way. Something very interesting I saw over the weekend here in one of the classes. We were asking some really young students, early primary school, about what was the tanti. The word tanti in Trinidadian parlance, or Caribbean if you're part of the Caribbean. Tanti. And what does tanti mean? And they said tanti means a lady who sells you snacks. And you would never understand, you'd never get that. And the thing is, one of them said a tanti is a lady who sells you snacks. Another said, no, a tanti is a lady who gives you change. So you wouldn't even understand the different ways they see this. You wouldn't understand that they might be using this word. You're hearing this young child using tanti, and they don't really fully understand the meaning. Tanti is basically auntie, just by the way, in case you didn't know either. And looking at the setup in our education system right now, I saw over the last week that there was some difficulties in Trinidad and Tobago in the education system, where a school in Karapichaima in Central Region recently had two influencers there to go and speak to the students, and they made a video. And then the video eventually had some comments coming on it, where many people were commenting saying that the kind of content that these influencers put out there into the public on the internet is not conducive to having these kind of influencers in school. Influencers, agent, and backlash after school visit. We all make mistakes. Nigel C. Watson, agent of popular social media personality Matara French, is calling for compassion from the public and the government after she began facing a backlash for visiting a school to speak to students, despite being seen in controversial and sometimes obscene content on social media. I believe the ministry and the people in the school are watching this in a totally wrong way, Watson said. They are sending a message that once you did something wrong, you should not be forgiven, and nobody should hear you, and you should just stay under the bus. And I think that is wrong. We all make mistakes. I agree. We do all make mistakes. However, there are some mistakes you make that make it difficult for you to get involved in other things. For example, if while I was 18, I made the mistake of joining a gang and made the mistake of becoming involved in some of the violent tendencies of the gang, and I made the mistake of committing a violent crime, whether it be assault or even all the way murder. I didn't even intend to murder the guy, it was a mistake. I would still have to face the consequences of that action. Well, once they catch me, that is. Mistake or not. Mistake or not. And even if, let's say, I have to face 25 years in jail, in prison. For all of those 25 years, I could be very sorry. I could be contrite. I could look back and say, this was a mistake. I should never do that again. And I still have to face the consequences of it. So, consequences are not negated even though you understand that you made a mistake. So that's just the first point in that. I'm not saying that it isn't a mistake. I'm not saying that people cannot get over their mistakes, but there are still consequences to face for actions. That's just the reality. And then when you're talking about something like inviting someone to a school, you invite someone there for a specific purpose. Now, I looked at the response that Matara herself did to some of this. And she was highlighting she has been in schools for over 10 years now. This isn't a modern thing. People are now seeing it and are now making an issue of it, but she has been in schools before. And here's part of what I think about this. The reason she's invited in schools is because the students know her. The students know her. The students respond to her. If you have a problem with her interacting with the students, going into the school isn't where that interaction is happening. Now, I would say when she goes into the school, I don't think she says obscene things. I would think she says generally good things. The obscenities come online. But where do these children get to know her from? Online. The children, when they're cheering for Matara French when she steps in the school, they are not cheering for her because they just saw this person for the first time. They're cheering for her because they have already seen her videos online many times. So if you have a problem with her having an effect on the children, it's not when she goes into school she's having that effect. You're looking at the wrong place. You're worried about the wrong things because that's not where the effect is happening. If you're worried about your child becoming tainted by one Matara French, then you have to worry about your child's online use, your child's use of social media. I find it so amazing that so many people are alarmed about who enters into a school to speak to a child, but they are not alarmed by that same person entering into the child's phone and speaking to the child all night long. I find that something seems a bit misplaced there. But that's all I have for now. Tell me what you think. Drop a comment, tell me what you think. This was all brought to you by Mindful Education, our educational video that we'll try to put out every Monday from now on, talking on different educational topics. If you are interested in getting and joining into our learning pods, they start from preschool, go all the way up to late secondary. So if you are interested in that, there are small classes, around 6 students per class, and we aim at teaching different styles from the general public education. The format is aimed at a more comfortable homeschool style format. If you are interested in that, reach out to us. Wherever you can get into contact with me, most of my inboxes are open. Mindful Education with 2 L's over there on Instagram if you are interested in following us and keeping in touch. And I will see you in the next video.